All right, welcome back. And the topic of this lecture is going to be learning from the lab incidents. All right. So I'm going to start off with another incident like I normally do in the past two lectures that you've had from me so far, their last two sections, lecture topics at least. And I'm just going to read an incident about what's happened before in the past and what can we learn from it. So Justin had long hair. And this is not Justin on the right-hand side, by the way. I hope it's not Justin at least. But Justin had long hair. The instructor told all students to be sure that any long hair was tied up so they could safely work at their lab bench. The girls in the class followed the instructions. Some of the boys with long hair did not follow these instructions, and the instructor did not enforce the rule. Justin leaned too close to the burner, and his hair caught fire. He began beating the flames with his hands, and a fellow student poured water onto the hair. Slight burns to Justin's face, hands, and ear occurred. So what lessons can be learned here? Well, number one, Justin had long hair. So the moral of this story is don't be sexist in the laboratory, all right? If the rule is good enough for one gender, it's good enough for all genders, right? So Justin had long hair, he was a male, but he still should have followed the rules. Second, it was partly the instructor's fault. The instructors enforced it onto the women, but the instructor should not have been sexist, and the instructor should have also enforced it onto the male. Okay, and that included Justin. So, partly Justin's fault for not listening to the rules and tying his long hair up, and it's part the instructor's fault because he or she did not enforce the lab rule on the males or the boys in the lab. And if those two things happen, then that would have prevented this incident from occurring. Second, Justin leaned too close to the burner. Not only could hair caught on fire, but any kind of loose articles of clothing could have caught on fire as well. So if you're a female and you love to wear those baggy little sleeves in the laboratory, make sure that you pull those sleeves up. Because those blouses and those loose-fitting sleeves can be a problem in the lab itself. If you're a guy or a girl with long sleeves, then you want to make sure that you pull those long sleeves up as well. Sometimes those can get dipped down into chemicals. Sometimes those can get into a flame, and you don't want that to happen. Next, he began beating the flames with his hands, and a fellow student poured water onto the hair. So what I want to say about this is that you have to be ready for an incident to happen, right? You've got to be prepared. So you always have to think, if I do catch myself on fire, what is the proper scenario of making sure the fire gets extinguished? He began beating the flames with his hands. The fellow student reacted and poured water onto the hair. So that helped a little bit. So you want to make sure that you're looking around for other people as well. Make sure that if an incident does happen in a laboratory, that that person is safe and that you're safe as well, and that you can kind of help out if you feel comfortable in helping out into the situation. So don't be a Justin in a lab, okay? I want you to make sure that you stay safe, you understand the lab rules, and know good and well that these rules apply to everybody and not just certain portions of the class, okay? So lab incidents, what can we say about lab incidents? All right, so we want to review all incidents with the ramp. And ramp we've talked about in previous videos before, right? The R stood for recognize. So in this last incident, what was the hazards? Who could recognize those hazards, right? So we recognize the hazards here, and the hazard was long hair was dangling from Justin's head. That was the hazard. Not only that, but there was an open flame in the laboratory. That was a hazard as well. The A stood for assess. So we wanted to assess the risk. So someone should have looked at this scenario and said, long hair, open flame, the hair can catch on fire. That was the assessment part of the ramp that we discussed very early on. M, minimize the risk. Well, the risk was minimized on the females, but the risk was not minimized on the males, right? So everyone, including the boys of the class with long hair, should have had their hair pulled back. That is minimizing the risk that's associated with long hair and open flame in a laboratory. And P was prepare. Justin was kind of prepared. He kind of knew what to do. He didn't freak out. He didn't scream. He didn't go running down the hallway or, scream bloody murder in the class. He basically beat the flame out with his hands. Hopefully that didn't hurt. The next door neighbor, his lab partner, was prepared as well. So they actually poured water onto the hair to extinguish it out. But just make sure that you're aware and that you know how to handle yourself if an accident or an incident really occurs in the laboratory. So just a quick ramp review. That's all that was, right? So I want to go back and talk about a couple of definitions. Incidents are really how we're labeling these every single time. Incidents are unplanned, they're unexpected, and they are also undesirable. I'm sure that Justin in this lab incident did not plan on his hair catching fire, did not expect that his hair would catch on fire, and did not desire his hair to catch on fire. If so, he's a crazy person, right? So incidents are unplanned, unexpected, and undesirable. They have adverse effects. That means bad, right? Incidents probably do not have good effects. They have bad effects every single time. Every incident has a preventable cause. That means when an incident takes place, we can always look back on it and say, this is what we should have done to prevent this from happening. This is what we should have done, and this would have never happened in the first place. But this gives us a very good case or example to implement new rules or new things in the future to prevent these incidents from happening again. Because the last thing that we want is the same incident to happen over and over and over and over. So, what I want to say is that in a laboratory, nothing is an accident. Nothing is an accident in a laboratory. Instead, everything is an incident that can be prevented. And we have to make sure that the incidents are prevented whenever they can happen. All chances of incidents should be avoided. Now, we often say, whether it's in the lab or whether it's out in the real world, a near miss. Let's say that you're driving down the road and you're minding your own business, and then you see two cars in front of you. One comes to a stop at a stoplight, and the one behind that car basically slams on the brakes, squeals the tires, smoke comes from the back, and they do not hit the bumper. But they get really, really close. That is a near miss, right? You came close, but nothing happened. Near misses happened in the laboratory too, right? You got lucky. So let's say that Justin went into the lab, and let's say that his hair dangled into the flame, but his hair did not catch on fire. That was a near miss. That incident could have happened. That incident could have caused Justin's hair to go up in flames, but he had a near miss. It didn't happen this time, but that does not mean that it won't happen next time. You got lucky. You won't get lucky every single time. Another rule that we kind of follow is do not blame someone. Focus on how the incident occurred, and then focus on how to prevent the incident from happening again. One person is not the fault of an incident happening in a laboratory. Because here's the story. You can't blame just one person. Everyone has to take the fault. The instructor has to take the fault because they didn't enforce the rule. Justin has to take the fault because he didn't pull the hair back like it was told in the classroom. The lab partner took the fault because the lab partner should have said, hey, Justin, you've got long hair and you need to pull that back. You don't want to catch it fire. And he didn't. He refused to do it. The lab partners across the lab bench should have looked at Justin and did the same thing. Hey, you need to pull back your hair. He said if you got long hair, you got to pull it back. So, where's your rubber band? Where's your clip? You can't blame someone. You have to blame everyone when it happens. It's everyone's lab. Everyone's in there at the same time. Everyone understands the rules and the techniques that have to be implemented in a laboratory environment. And you can't let any of that slip. If so, you're as fault as everyone else is. So instead of blaming someone, let's focus on the incident, how it occurred, and how to prevent it in the future. And most of the time, what we say is that these incidents happen because of at-risk behavior. At-risk behavior and lack of knowledge are the two major reasons that things happen in the laboratory. At-risk behavior means Justin knew. Justin knew he had long hair. Justin knew that he should have pulled it back. Justin knew that he was working with open flame, but instead of doing it, he just refused to pull it back, and that was at-risk behavior. He's putting himself at risk. Right? The same way with goggles. You know that goggles should be worn in the lab. You go into the lab and you don't put the goggles on. You work with chemicals that can splatter and get into your eyeballs. And because you're not wearing your goggles, you are performing at-risk behavior. Lack of knowledge is another one that can happen as well. Let's say that you just simply don't know. Let's say the instructor did not tell Justin or anyone in the class to pull back long hair. Well, that lack of knowledge doesn't mean that this was Justin's fault. He just simply did not know. So the loose hair was dangling, the loose hair got into the flame, the loose hair caught on fire. Right? Whose fault is that? Well, it should still kind of be Justin's, because he should have common sense not to dangle hair into an open flame. And it should still be the instructor's, because they should have told them about the rules and make the employees or the students more knowledgeable of the safety rules. And it should still be the fault of the lab partners and the students across from them, because the lab partners should have said, hey, Justin, whoa, you're getting really close to that flame. If you get any closer, your hair is going to catch on fire. Come on, people, give me a break, right? So lack of knowledge and at-risk behavior are the reasons that these incidents begin to occur. All right. When we talk about incidents in a laboratory, what we find out is that most of the time, the same mistake happens over and over. It doesn't matter the year, it doesn't matter the employee, it doesn't matter the course as far as academics go. But if something's going to happen in the lab, it's pretty much common things that happen. Nothing too out of the ordinary that goes on. So we make the same mistake over and over and over again. So you need to ask yourself 3 questions. 1, what happened? 2, how did it happen? And 3, why did it happen? What happened in Justin's case? His hair caught on fire. How did it happen? Well, he didn't tie back the long hair. Why did it happen? Because he didn't listen to the instructor and the instructor did not enforce the rule. That is the what, how, and why. This begins the process of what we call root cause analysis. And we abbreviate that with an RCA, root cause analysis. RCA the incident every single time. And you will get to the root cause of the problem. Can we take this to the simplest thing, and if we fix that simplest thing that happened and change it, will we prevent this incident from occurring? Would we have? And will we prevent this incident from occurring in the future? If so, you found the root cause, you can fix it and prevent the incidents from happening over and over. So don't bother apologizing in the lab if you keep making the same mistakes over and over again, right? Whether that's in our academic lab or whether that's for a company. If you keep making the same mistakes over and over and over, do not bother apologizing, because that means that you could be slightly ignorant. Meaning that you are ignorant to what's around you and you are ignorant to what's causing the incident. And you, as an active person, needs to be involved heavily in your own safety. And if you go into the lab and you make the same mistake over and over, they're going to get rid of you. They're going to fire you. And if you make the same mistake over and over and over in the lab, you're probably not going to get a good grade on the lab, right? So don't be ignorant. Don't be oblivious to the rules that are there and why you're making the mistakes. You have to kind of step up to bat. You got to take care of your own responsibilities at a certain point in your life, and this is the time to do it. You also have some people that will go through and implement what we call the 5 whys. And I guess that doesn't need to be an apostrophe. We'll get rid of that. The 5 whys. Okay, well, what are the 5 whys? Well, you ask why 5 times. Number 1, why did that happen? Well, Justin did not pull back the long hair. Why did that happen? Because the instructor did not enforce the safety measure. Well, why did that happen? Well, he only enforced the safety measure on the females of the class. Why did that happen? Because men with long hair is uncommon, and the instructor focused on only the normal routine of ensuring the safety of the females of the class. Well, why did that happen? Well, the instructor should have been trained more on safety precautions, especially targeting male students. And the safety program should be revisited. See, I did not blame a person. I blamed the program, right? The safety program should have been redone. The safety program should focus on male students more. That way the instructor would have walked away with a more concrete kind of feet in the sand stance on male and female long hair. If that happened, all of this would have been fixed. So 5 whys. Why? Be that annoying little kid in the back seat of the car on a really long trip. Why? That's what you always hear, right? So that's kind of a root cause analysis, just a different way of looking at it. Okay? All right, so in the next video, I'm going to show you a couple of articles and where you can maybe pull up some incidents of laboratories that have happened across the country, and maybe you can learn from these a little bit. So in the next video, come back, I'll show you this link, and we'll go to the website, and we'll take a look at what's there.